Why is the question that I, David Ruhf, have been asked the most in interviews by students and their parents, by relatives, by friends, and by professors. They want to know why I went into teaching, and now why I'm going into instructional technology. Before I can answer the latter, I must answer why teaching. I have always loved helping others. My parents raised me to help others no matter the outcome. They did not have much, but they would give the shirt off their backs to a stranger in need. This made a big impression on me, not just by helping others, but also being able to appreciate what others have done for me. In high school, I was the person that everyone went to for help. On their science and math work, I also was the person that their friends called at 2 in the morning when they needed someone to talk to. When I graduated high school, my plan was to join the U.S. Army Reserves and go to college to become a police officer. After my initial training for the Army, I started college at Indiana University of Pennsylvania. After a couple of semesters in criminology, I started having a yearning to enter the teaching field. As I was taking my college classes, I found myself tutoring other students in my classes, and I enjoyed it. I transferred to Kutztown University of Pennsylvania for their education programs. At first, I was not sure which education major I wanted to concentrate in. After exploring my options, I decided to go with my strongest area and choose secondary education in mathematics. In February of 2003, I was called to active duty and deployed to Kuwait and Iraq for the start of Operation Iraqi Freedom. I was deployed to Iraq for a year. It was one of the greatest times in my life. There were so many things I would never have been able to experience elsewhere. My unit was in charge of running prisons and prison camps. My job was coordinating all the transportation for the prisons. If something or someone needed to go somewhere, I was the person to see. I was responsible for coordinating the daily movement and safety of 20 to 100 U.S. troops and 50 to 200 prisoners, as well as making sure all the necessary vehicles were available to successfully complete each mission. During this time, I learned a great deal of leadership and planning skills, as well as working under great stress. It feels like I lived a complete lifetime in that year. After my deployment, I returned to Kutztown and continued my education degree. For financial reasons, I had to start working full-time and go to school part-time. I worked for Walmart as a manager of a tire lube express. The skills for changing tires and oils I learned from one of my summer jobs. The management skills I learned from my time in the Army. I enjoyed this job, but I found a job as a juvenile correction officer at the Berks County Youth Center. I was back in the criminal justice field, but I was also working with teenagers. This gave me great experience working with troubled youth. I really enjoyed working with the teenagers in the youth center and was thinking of making it a career of it. I was still working on my education degree and was planning on finishing, but I was considering staying in juvenile corrections. The more and more I worked with and got to build a rapport with the residents of the youth center, I saw some common denominators between most of the residents. The obvious one was family. Most of them came from broken homes. A lot of them had family members in jails or on drugs. The other common denominator is education. Most of the residents were doing poorly in school or kicked out of their home school. For them, they were done with school. They felt they had no further need for school. It was just a place they got in trouble and did not learn anything. What they did not realize is that limited their future and led to a lifetime of repeating their criminal ways. Too many of the residents were repeat offenders and either returned frequently or graduated to adult prison. That is, if they made it to adulthood. As a problem solver, I tried to figure out what can I do to help and try to change things. When talking to the residents, I used to always say that I was just one wrong choice from being in the same place as they were. We would then discuss how it was not one event that got them locked up, but instead it was the choices they made that led them down the road to lockup. In reflecting over my past, I look at the choices I made. I looked at my elementary years. In elementary school, I was a bit of a class clown. I was in the principal's office so much that I had my own seat. Even though education was very important at home, and I knew before I entered kindergarten that I was going to college, while at school in the lower grades, I was not that concerned about my schooling. It wasn't until the 4th grade when I had a teacher who pulled me aside. I still remember it to this day. When in the fall of 1989, my teacher, Mr. Devine, took us on a field trip to the school baseball field. He asked the class a couple of questions about the nature that was in the field. I knew the answer to all the questions. He pulled me aside and said, "Why do you always act like a clown and goof around? You are so smart. You should start working on your schooling instead of being a clown." That is all it took. I started working on schooling and started goofing around so much. It was not an overnight change, but it put me back on the right track. And by the time I entered the 7th grade, I was completely a different student. I could still have fun, but my academics was my top priority. From the 7th to 12th grade, I got into very little trouble, and it was for very minor issues. The fact that I still remember the conversation with Mr. Devine was a revelation that the answer to keeping teenagers out of jail and alive was education. By the time the teenagers reached the youth center, they had given up on their education, setting their path to destruction. I came to the realization that if I wanted to help teenagers, it would have to happen before they reached jail. That is why I decided that when I graduated with my teaching degree, I would pursue a career in education. Since I started teaching, I have had many opportunities to use what I learned working at the Berks County Youth Center. Building a rapport with students is so important in engaging them and helping them learn. Students will try so much more for teachers that they have a rapport with, and all I ask of my students is that they try. If I can get them to try, before they know it, they are succeeding. Unfortunately, many of them have poor home lives, and we as teachers have to be the rocks that they can stand on, and that is what I strive for every day. So now for the why instructional technology. Like when choosing my area in education, I have a lot of options. There are many areas that I'm interested in and could see myself succeeding at. I chose instructional technology because technology is here to stay, and is the future of education, both in the traditional classroom and online learning. As I state in my instructional technology philosophy, I received so much from being able to use technology in the yearbook club of my high school. We did not even have a television at my home growing up, so all of my technology experience came from school. I would have been so far behind when I joined the military and started college. I want to be a proponent for education in schools so that we can train our students for the future and give all of our students an equal footing for their future. I understand how powerful technology can be in engaging the students in the learning process. So having the chance to enhance my technology skills and how I use my technology in classrooms seemed like a logical choice. The skills I have learned in Instructional Technology Master's Program at Kutztown University of Pennsylvania has given me a strong foundation in technology for now and the future. It has given me resources that I can use in my classroom currently. Examples of this are my lesson on interest and percentages, which include a web quest on buying a car or a web quest on discount and taxes. The tools I cannot currently use, I know I'll be able to use in the future. The technology may change, but the skills don't. Another reason why I chose instructional technology is that I have seen effective instructional technology programs and ineffective ones, and what a difference it makes. As soon as you walk into these schools, the difference is obvious. Either the school is teaming with technology and the teachers and students buy into it, or the school looks and feels like it's still in the Stone Age. Any new technology is met with resistance by students and staff. I ended up at a school that is not pro-technology, but I'm doing my part to change this attitude. I cannot change the funding of technology, but I can change the mindset of my fellow educators. One thing I have done is co-taught a workshop on Google Drive for my fellow teachers on an in-service day. This was met with very positive feedback, and we have had several teachers buy into it using Google Drive in their classrooms. It does not matter whether I stay in the classroom or move into an administration role. My mission stays the same: set students up for success in the future, show them how a good education helps them have a better future as an individual and as a society. Education in the traditional sense and in technology is a great equalizer that will allow our students to achieve the American dream.